Micah is in the list of the books of the prophets and the number of chapters in his book. We also showed where the book is in the chronological order of the books of prophecy. It is right after Isaiah. We showed where Micah's hometown was, which is in Moresheth-gath. Next, we looked at the overview of history during the time of Micah, which was primarily focused on the expansion of the Assyrian Empire. We also looked at how that had affected Israel and was now affecting Judah through the surrounding of Jerusalem by its armies, which were led by Rabshakeh, who insulted the Jews, their king, and most of all, he blasphemed God. Scripturally, the place where we stopped last week is Isaiah, the 37th chapter, verses 1 through 4, which reads as follows. And it came to pass, when King Hezekiah heard it, that he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. And he sent Eliakim, who was over the household, and Shebaniah, the scribe, and the elders of the priests, covered with sackcloth, unto Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amos. And they said unto him, Thus said Hezekiah, This is a day of trouble and of rebuke and of blasphemy, for the children are come to the birth, and there is not enough strength to bring forth. It may be the Lord thy God will hear the words of Rabshakeh, whom the king of Assyria, his master, has sent to reproach the living God, and will reprove the words which the Lord thy God hath heard. Wherefore lift up thy prayer for the remnant that is left. Okay. So with the slide, we have Isaiah, the 37th chapter, verses 5 through 7. So the servants of the king Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said unto them, Thus shall ye say unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherein the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and return to his land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. Basically, it's this: do not be afraid. God had also acknowledged that he had been blasphemed by Rabshakeh. Hezekiah is informed about what God intended to do to the Assyrians. Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. From the following comments, we can see that God had already put things in motion to save his people. After Rabshakeh delivered his message and received no answer, he left his army at Jerusalem. Okay, let me go back. After Rabshakeh delivered his message and received no answer, he left his army at Jerusalem under the command of other generals, and went to Sennacherib, king of Assyria, for further orders. He found the king besieging Lithba, a city that had revolted from Judah. This is also another example of God's providence in action. The following is what caused Rabshakeh to leave the siege of Jerusalem. Rabshakeh was alarmed at the rumor that Trekah, king of Ethiopia, was coming out against Assyria with a great army. He needed to finish the effort against Jerusalem quickly and put his efforts toward defense. Sennacherib, king of Assyria, sent a letter to Hezekiah in order to get him to surrender. He tried to persuade him with boasting about his conquering success and terror. Okay. Hezekiah took the letter to the temple and spread it before the Lord. He prayed over the letter and appealed to God concerning the insolence of Sennacherib. Two main thoughts are indicated here. Sennacherib tries to get Hezekiah to surrender using the wisdom of or logic of man. Hezekiah does the right thing again. He took his problems to the Lord. This is also a lesson for us. We need to remember the words of that old song which states the obvious, and that is, where could I go but to the Lord? Okay. God answers Hezekiah's prayers and repeats the previous message and provides assurance to Hezekiah that the city would be saved and that Sennacherib would pay with his life for blaspheming him. That's found in Isaiah the 37th chapter, verses 5 through 7. So the servants of King Hezekiah came to Isaiah, and Isaiah said unto them, Thus shall you say unto your master, Thus saith the Lord, Be not afraid of the words that thou hast heard, wherein the servants of the king of Assyria have blasphemed me. Behold, I will send a blast upon him, and he shall hear a rumor and return to his own land, and I will cause him to fall by the sword in his own land. A detailed account of this is provided in Isaiah the 37th chapter, verses 22 through 35. Keith? Okay, I got you. All right. Huh? Go. All right. Go. Okay, good. Okay. And this shall be a sign unto thee. You shall eat this year such thing as grow of themselves, and in the second year that which springeth of the same, and in the third year sow ye, and reap, and plant vineyards, and eat the fruits thereof. Here are a few more details concerning their current situation and the blessing to come. The author writes, provisions were scarce and dear. What should they do for food? Jehovah Jireh, which means the Lord will provide. They would eat that which they did not sow, e.g., the Lord will provide. This provides another scriptural account of God's guarantee to save the city. And it's found in 2 Kings, the 19th chapter, verses 32 through 34. The writer writes, Therefore, thus saith the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, He shall not come into this city, nor shoot an arrow here, nor come before it with shield, nor cast a bank against it. By the way that he came, by the same shall he return, and shall not come into this city, saith the Lord. For I will defend this city to save it, for mine sake, and for my servant David's sake. God states twice, verses 32 and 33, that the Assyrians would not come into the city, and that he was defending the city for his and his servant David's sake. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
So in the slides that you've gone over, I just want to make sure I understand. Are these things that happen leading up to Micah, or are these happening at the same time that Micah's going to, when we go into Micah, is it going to start, you'll see the correlation between
Correct.
this is what's going on
Yeah.
in the background and this is what Micah was doing at that time? Or is this the prefix?
Correct. This is the lead up. This is why we have Micah. Without sin, we wouldn't have Micah. That is, if the children of Israel had not sinned, there would have been no reason for God to send Micah. Because they sinned, God sent Micah to warn them. Okay? So this is the environment, these are the things that are going on, okay, before we get into Micah. Okay? Good question. This is an additional bit of information about the fate of the Assyrians and who it was that delivered the city. The Assyrian army advanced upon Jerusalem, and just as been foretold, they never entered the city. They not so much as shot an arrow, for they were all killed. Also, note it's very important for us to remember to give God his glory when he blesses us. This is scriptural evidence, which is taken from 2 Kings, the 19th chapter, and verse 35, which confirms that God saved the city. The writer writes, "And it came to pass that night that the angel of the Lord went out and smote in the camp of the Assyrians 185,000. When they arose early in the morning, behold, they were all dead corpses." Excuse me. Here are the author's comments on the fate of Sennacherib. Sennacherib was not among his 185,000 soldiers that died, but so far as we know, Sennacherib never again returned to Palestine during the subsequent 20 years of his reign. Also, Isaiah confirms this about Sennacherib in Isaiah the 37th chapter in verse 38. "And it came to pass as he was worshiping in the house of Nisroch his god, that Adremelech and Sadizar his sons smote him with the sword, and they escaped into the land of Armenia, and Esarhaddon his son reigned in his stead." The prophecy doesn't provide a definite time frame for Sennacherib's fate. It merely states what happened. This concludes the historical overview section. The next 7 slides will provide a brief summary of the chapters in the book of Micah. Chapter 1, a message to the people. God is going to send judgment against his people for their idolatry. Micah provides a vivid picture of the path of the invading army moving through the hills of Judah to Jerusalem. This should have been enough to convince the people to repent. Chapter 2, exploitation. The men of Judah with power and influence were on the take, and they were not fussy about the means. Property was being seized, families were being made destitute, and the prophets were told it was none of their business. Verses 12 through 13 move abruptly to the future, picturing God at the head of the remnant of his people. 2 items here: a depiction of the sins of the leadership, a future glimpse which pictured God at the head of the remnant of his people. And for example, for your information, the word remnant usually means those that were faithful. The general idea is that God will always provide salvation for those that are faithful. Chapter 3, depravity. Chapter 3 sets forth in greater detail the depravity of the rulers. The consequence of their sin: Jerusalem would be plowed as a field. Micah's prophecy of the utter destruction that awaited Jerusalem was uttered about 150 years prior to its overthrow. Chapter 4, a messianic hope. There are 2 ideas here as follows. 1, verses 1 through 8 sweep us on to a new Jerusalem from which God's word goes out to all men in an era of peace and prosperity. 2, verses 9 through 13 return us to the condemned city, to a nation in exile, to God's judgment on all the nations around. And I have three minor points under that: the condemned city, a nation in exile, and God's judgment on all nations. Here's some additional information about the events which the prophecies of Micah covered. Assyria is the enemy in Micah's day, but like prophecies in Isaiah, Micah 4:10 looks over 100 years ahead to Babylon, the power that would eventually destroy Jerusalem. Chapter 5, the king from Bethlehem. In the midst of the Assyrian siege, Micah speaks of a deliverer, the ultimate deliverer who would come like King David of old from Bethlehem. In my opinion, this chapter has two primary messages as follows: the coming of the Messiah, verses 2 through 5, and that word is pronounced Epaphratha. 2, the destruction of the Assyrians, the enemies of God's people. Chapter 6. This is God's controversy with his people. This chapter has to do with God's controversy with his people as follows. 1, Israel's ingratitude, verses 1 through 5. The deceptiveness of the peoples, verses 6 through 7. They are pictured as if they were genuinely asking God, what could they do to please him? God responds to their deceptive question in Micah, the 6th chapter, in verse 8, as follows. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good. And what doth the Lord require of thee but to do justly, and to love mercy, and to walk humbly with thy God? Number 4 is God's condemnation of prevalent crimes in verses 9 through 6. Okay. And B. Excuse me, I didn't read that. Verses 9 through 6 reference Amos, the 8th chapter, and verse 5. Okay.
Verses 9 through 16.
Excuse me. Right. Okay, wait a minute. 9.
16.
Yes, ma'am. 9 through 16. Thank you. All right, let's go. And that should be it. All right. And it also references Omariah and Ahab of verse 16. They were two notorious kings of Israel, notorious for introducing Baal worship. Let me go back. Any questions about this slide? Okay.
Brother Bob, just so we are situated historically here, after God sends an angel to help and kill all the Assyrians and rescue or save the city of Jerusalem, then I believe years after is when Micah comes in, because then again come to this vicious circle that they're going to misbehave again.
You're there. Agreed.
Israelites are going to misbehave. So now Micah is warning them again as to what's happened 100 years before the actual Babylonian army comes into Jerusalem and destroys it and takes them in exile to Babylon.
Correct.
Correct?
All right. And just for clarity's sake, we are actually going through, this is an actual review or overview of the chapters of Micah, the book itself. Okay. All right. chapter 7. There are three main points here. Moral degeneration, which is condemned in verses 1 through 6. The future of Jerusalem and Judah, which is in verses 7 through 13. And the future promises of mercy from God, verses 14 through 20. The next section of the presentation has to do with the national sins of the nations of Israel and Judah. The next slide holds a list of those sins. All right, the sins are as follows. Idolatry, which is covered in Micah, the first chapter, verse 7. Covetousness in Micah, the second chapter, in verse 2. Oppression, which is covered in Micah, the second chapter, verse 2. Violence, which is covered in Micah, the third chapter, in verse 10. Encouraging false prophets, which is covered in Micah, the second chapter, in verse 6. Corruption of the princes, which is covered in Micah, the third chapter, verses 1 through 3. Corruption of the prophets, which is covered in Micah, the third chapter, verses 5 through 7. Corruption of the priests, which is covered in Micah, the third chapter, verse 11. Bribery, which is covered in Micah, the third chapter, verse 9. And dishonesty, which is covered in Micah 6:10. That's going to conclude the presentation. Would you like to come up with comments, or did I stop too early? Talk to me.
If you have questions for the class.
Yeah, does the class have any questions about? Okay, I guess my question would be, did you find the tool useful? Okay. Okay. No. Okay.
We should have questions that we can discuss.
Okay.
I find the information helpful, but I would like to have the application to what we've experienced.
Good question. Good question. This particular tool is not designed to do that. When I get into the lesson, that's when the application to today comes. That's when the opportunity for questions will come. Again, this is sort of like, this is all about Micah and the things that are going on. Okay, sit back, let me tell you what's going on. Okay, and then I use that to get the class ready for the next phase. Okay. When I go ahead, Keith.
Oh, go ahead and finish, Brother Paul.
When I get to what I have put together, you can ask the question any time. If I talk 2 minutes and explain a verse, you can ask me, what is that? What do you mean? I didn't understand. Okay. And that's the way that I design my lessons. They're highly interactive. I need the interaction from the audience to make it work. Okay. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Brother Paul, we know that Israel was always a rebellious nation.
Oh, okay.
And from what I'm gathering here in Micah, Micah was given a warning from God, which was already given by Isaiah, and right now this is coming fulfillment of that due to their lack of responsibility to hold God first. What's going on is that they're worshiping in high places, they're seeking other gods, they're having fornication with outside their tribe, outside of Israel with other tribes. They're doing everything that God has told them not to do. And when I read some of chapter 7, about, I say 16 on all the way down, he's talking about healing them. Because he's saying the nation shall see and be confounded at their might, which is Israel. They shall lay their hand upon their mouths, and their ears shall be deaf. They shall lick the dust like a serpent. They shall move out of their holes like worms of the earth. They shall be afraid of the Lord our God, and shall fear because of thee. And that just shows me that, even when Israel was disobedient, God always was ready to accept them, bring them back. And that's just showing me right here that there is an out. God always has an exit plan for me. I might be going through with A, B, and C, and D, but I'm not talking about sinning. I'm just talking about the woes of life. The sickness, the illness, the mental health, the things that we go through, the lack of money, too much money, the way we do. But God, if we hold on to His ever-changing hand, He will always keep us out of trouble.
Agreed. Great comments. Again, this tool is designed to give you an overall view of Micah. It is not designed to be an analysis tool. Okay? It's like, okay, this is what Micah is about. I have a good baseline, so when I begin my study, okay, I'm aware of the social and political climate of the times. Okay? Again, it is not an analysis tool. I would equate it to a bedtime story. Okay? It gives you enough to get going so that you can do your study. Yes, sir.
It sounds like it's like a narrative
Yes.
before you get to the whole thing. It's just almost like our Sunday schools, the lesson text, going to give you an overview of what's going to happen. And then when we get the application at the end. So sometimes when I read it, I go to the lesson text to see what's going to be before us. And I'll go back to the application, see what I should have picked up.
Correct.
So that's,
Yeah. If we were to use an analogy, this would be an hors d'oeuvre, okay, before the dinner. All right, it's not meant to fill you up, just to whet your appetite. I think that would be a good analogy to use. All right. Can we cut? Go ahead.
So now you gave us that. We have, some time.
Yes, sir.
And so are you prepared to go into Micah tonight or no?
If I were to move on and I am at my limit, in about 5 minutes I'm at my limit.
Okay.
If I can show you what I got, I can just go through it, give you an idea of what I have. If that's okay, all right. You want to see?
No.
Okay. Here we go. This should be the introduction phase. Oh, I'm sorry. When I start, I usually put in some words of encouragement. And these are taken from a friend named, his name is Dr. Donnie Barnes. He passed away. This is part of his life's work, and it's solid. Oh, I didn't read this. Okay. I usually do 2 slides, one with points of life and the other that has to do with marriage or something else. There are a numerous amount of slides in his work. They cover everything from A to Z. Okay. Now this will be me getting into the introduction. Okay. As you can see, I go through who Micah is, what his name means, the dates of his life, the audience, what's the purpose, the theme of Michael, the punishment of Judah and Israel, the punishment of Judah and Israel. All right. Again, we're just going through this, okay? Now we're going to get into the outline of the book. Go ahead.
I do have a question just based on some of the things that you were doing there. So at this point, we are dealing with Israel being one, or are they divided into their 2 kingdoms? They're divided into their 2 kingdoms.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. All right. Now, this information was compiled from a Bible course that I took. What I did was take the instructor's notes, take the information, write it down in my own words, and then made PowerPoint presentations about it. Okay. Okay. Lessons. Okay. Again, this is part of the introduction. Am I going too fast?
So in the lessons, those are the things that we're going to learn once we're done reading Micah, or are these things that we're going to discuss about what was going on inside or during or in book Micah?
Let me go back one. These are the lessons from the book of Micah, okay? And to answer your question, I will be covering those, okay, as part of my analysis of the material. This has to be Micah 6:8. Yes. It has to be Micah 6:8. Okay. All right. Go ahead. All right. Purpose of the book.
But, Paul, is this going to be a study of Micah or a study of learning how to teach period? Because there's a lot in the book of Micah that's
Go ahead.
That's very, I think, important for every Christian to know. Because as I scanned through it, it's got so many warnings and so many things that, pertain to us as a Christian now. I just want to know, is this about Micah, or is this about how you presenting the way a person should teach? Or not the book of Micah, but just how follow your lead on teaching?
Oh, no. Excuse me. First of all, I would never tell a person what to do and how to study. This will be a thorough analysis of the book of Micah, okay? You can learn, you may be able to learn how to teach from it, and I'll be glad to share my materials. These materials here, you can get a copy of, okay? That other section, I can't give you a copy of those because those are copyrighted. I just have the permission to show those, okay, in a Bible class. This here is mine, okay? I'm more than willing to share it, give it to you, whatever you want, okay? Yes, sir.
And was it, Micah was your first choice to teach, or you got to go through the whole Old Testament? Because I was just talking to me, I was right now with Keith, and I said, well, we don't be in the Old Testament much as we do in the New Testament. He goes, the New Testament is really where we're going to be judged from, at least I. So it's good that you're going into the Old Testament, and we on Sunday mornings we in the Old Testament, and so because you can see all these things and how God's providence and everything, and it's really good to get in those things and see how God dealt with them, and it's pretty much we find in these stories nothing under the sun, because it's just human beings being hard-headed, and you got to get chastised and all again. So, yeah, I just want to give you hands up for
Okay.
starting there, and Micah,
Okay.
wherever it is.
It's not a problem. When I never studied the Old Testament, I ended up looking for material about the Old Testament that I could study myself. I didn't want someone standing in front of me telling me what thus saith the Lord. Give me the material, let me do the analysis, let me do the research. I found it. That's how I got into the Minor Prophets. Dr. Denny Petrillo happened to have those DVDs available. I looked at them and I love them. Now, as far as Micah, the truth be told, when Daryl said he was going out of town and when the call went out, I looked at the neatest one that I had that I could get up and present without too much study. Okay? Okay, that's the truth. Now, what I have, go ahead. Well, I am going to, Brother Darrell is going to come up. He's going, the plan is to finish prayer. Then I will probably take a month. I think I can do a month. If I can do more, I'll do more. But we'll have to see how it goes. And the reason is, not every person can teach not everyone can teach everyone. I may not be a suitable teacher, okay? So we'll have to see how it goes. And if it goes good, I'll try to teach as much as I can. But my initial plan is to go for a month, see how it goes. You guys may not like the way I teach, and you may not like my material. That's okay. Okay. All right. Okay, it's time for me to stop. My wife, oh, go ahead. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'll teach. I think he's going to go another, let's say he goes another month. All right. Yes, ma'am.